What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the 5 best old Samsung flagship phones to buy. This is my updated list, just giving you guys my opinions after all of the updates. So the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is still around the same price, still roughly around 750 to 800 bucks to get one of these. So it's still pretty expensive, and that's mostly because it's the last Note phone technically with SD card support, so it remains high in value. So this phone does have still, I think, a really good design, really classy design, especially if you get the like bronze color as well too. It has stainless steel frame. It's IP68 dust and water resistant. Of course, the built-in stylus works flawlessly still on this phone. It does have the dynamic AMOLED display. It's a 120 hertz HDR10 plus, but remember, it's only 120 hertz at 1080p. It can't do 120 hertz at 1440p. It's a 6.9-inch display, so it's a really big display, and it is 1440p 496 for the PPI. The display on here is beautiful, boxy design, punch hole in the middle, and like I said, just massive. So I always love watching videos on this phone. Now this phone, it got the Android 12 update with the One UI 4.1. It's been working flawlessly. This phone will get Android 13, then it will move into its security patch stages, so please do remember that. You also have the Snapdragon 865 chip on here and Adreno 650, so this phone is still extremely powerful. It still plays pretty much any game at max settings. I do have a gaming test for you guys, and it's absolutely a flawless experience. So if you do want to use this for a gaming device, it is really great. And remember, these phones you can actually hold for a good 4 to 5 years, honestly, and they'll still be really fast. So always remember that. You do have, like I said, micro SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 12 gigs of RAM. Most of the ones online are 256. So you should, I would aim for that one. So you do have stereo speakers, which are very loud, sound really good. This also has good vibration motor. No SD card, or not SD card, but no headphone jack on this phone. You also have NFC on board with this guy as well. The under the display fingerprint sensor works great, and this phone also has the Samsung wireless desktop experience on here as well too. So it has all of your little bells and whistles, reverse wireless charging, all of that good stuff. So the Note 20 Ultra's cameras, they're really top notch still. So it has a 108 megapixel lens with a 12 megapixel periscope telephoto lens that does 5x, and then you have up to 50x hybrid zoom. You also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide with 8K video at 24, and then you have a 10 megapixel selfie with 4K 60. So you're getting still top notch, in my opinion, still pretty much flagship quality photos in video. Still very good looking shots here. It does it really good in low light situations as well too. So I'm always a big fan of the Note 20 Ultra's cameras. So this also has a 4,500 milliamp battery with 25-watt fast charging with wireless charging. And battery life for me is pretty good. I can easily squeeze a day out of this phone, no problem. You get well over 6 hours of screen on time. So the Note 20 Ultra is definitely a great device still. Now next is going to be the Samsung Galaxy S10, or you can get the slightly bigger S10 Plus if you want a bigger phone. But what I like about the standard S10 is that one, it's extremely cheap. You can find it for around like 250 bucks. All links will be down below. And on top of that, it just feels really good in the hand because of the size of the phone. So it's got an aluminum frame, glass back, it's IP68 dust and water resistant. You also have the 6.1-inch dynamic AMOLED display, it's HDR10 plus, and it has 1440p resolution at 550 for the PPI punch hole on the right hand side. It's a really good display here, very high res, and like I said, for people with smaller hands, this is more ideal. If you want something bigger, then you would go with that S10 Plus. We also have Android 12 with the One UI 4.1 on this guy, so it's been running like a breeze. One UI 4.1 has been absolutely excellent, and you do have the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. So performance wise on this phone, it is still really good. Do note that that was the last major OS update for this phone. This phone will go into its security patch stages. So the phone is just, it just has been getting better with age. Performance wise, gaming, if you check out the gaming test, this thing plays anything at high settings still today in 2022. Absolutely amazing performance on this phone. You also have micro SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, 6 or 8 gigs of RAM, depending on which one you get. Most versions online are 8 gigs. So you do have stereo speakers on here, which sound absolutely amazing, tuned by AKG. And then this phone also still retains the headphone jack as well too for my die-hard headphone users. You also have NFC. The under the display fingerprint sensor works really great. And this phone has Samsung desktop support, and the reverse wireless charging is on board here. So it really has all of the spec'd out features that you could really want, even in the latest flagships. So you do have a triple camera setup on here now. With these older S10 phones, you don't have all the fancy zoom stuff that you would have on the newer ones, but I still think the cameras are pretty good. You guys can see the shots for yourself. 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel telephoto does 2x, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60 with a 10 megapixel selfie cam that also shoots in 4K 60. So absolutely great image quality in my opinion. So I think where these older phones kind of lag, low light is not as good as on the newer phones, but honestly in decent and good lighting, these shots still look great to me. So you do also have a 3,400 milliamp battery with 15-watt charging on here. Battery life, and again, you can easily get up to that 6 hours of screen on time with this phone if you're not like gaming crazy. So I still think battery life is pretty decent. Alright guys, next is going to be the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. This is my personal favorite on the list. I think it's just amazing for the price at around 400 bucks. It's got this beautiful design on here, especially if you get the color shifting version. You do have an aluminum frame, glass back. It's IP68, dust and water resistant. This one, of course, has the built-in stylus. And it's got a pretty big 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display. It's HDR10 Plus at 1440p, 498 for the PPI. I think it's a pretty good panel. I mean, it's really flawless. If you guys look at my Note 10 Plus versus S22 Ultra, you guys will see how pretty similar the screens are. So you also have Android 12 with the One UI 4.1 update on here. It runs absolutely flawless, and it just feels even snappier and even better with the updates. So you also have the Snapdragon 855 and the Adreno 640 on here as well. And again, this is another phone. Check out the gaming test. Does an absolutely insane job playing games. Pretty much maxes everything out. Fortnite at 60 frames is really crazy how well this phone still performs. Also have micro SD card support. One of the things I absolutely love about the Note 10 Plus is that the base model is 256 12 gigs of RAM. So you're gonna get 256 12 gigs of RAM, which I think is absolutely amazing. And again, on top of that SD card support, it's really nice. Also, the speakers on here are absolutely great. Great stereo speakers on here. You also have NFC. Fingerprint scanner under the display, works very fast. The Samsung desktop support is on here as well too. And then we have some pretty good cameras. And again, you don't have the crazy zoom stuff, but I think the cameras are pretty good still on here. A 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto, and then 2x optical zoom with a 16 megapixel ultra wide, and then you have a 0.3 depth sensor, and then you have 4K 60 video, and then 10 megapixel selfie with also 4K 60. So overall, the image quality, you can see super clean, good detail, good color. I still think it takes phenomenal photos. So you also have on this phone pretty good battery life. Check out my battery drain test I did against this one and the S22 Ultra, so you guys can actually see what I'm talking about. 4300 milliamp battery, pretty decent fast charging at 45 watts. You also have the wireless charging and reverse wireless charging, so easily get over 6 hours of screen on time with this phone. Just an excellent buy. Alright guys, next is going to be the Galaxy S20 FE 5G. This is an awesome phone. It does have a plastic back and aluminum frame. It's IP68 dust and water resistant. You can typically find these for around 350 to 400. It's got the Super AMOLED display, 120 Hz HDR10 Plus at 6.5 inches. It's 1080p 407 for the PPI. So a really nice display. It's a flat display, punch hole in the middle. Classic Samsung display here, beautiful colors and everything like that. I don't have any issues with that. This phone does have Android 12 with the One UI 4.1, and it runs extremely smooth. This phone will also get the Android 13 update, and then it will go into security patch stages. You also do have great gaming performance on here with the Snapdragon 865 chip and the Adreno 650 GPU. Basically, it's another phone that can be able to play games at the highest settings, no issues. You also have micro SD card support and 128 gigs of internal storage with 6 or 8 gigs of RAM on here. And in general, the performance is pretty smooth on this device. You do also have stereo speakers on here, which sound excellent, really loud stereo speakers. No headphone jack, fingerprint scanner under the display. It's very fast. And then you also have on here some excellent cameras. It's a 12 megapixel standard and then an 8 megapixel telephoto with 3x optical zoom, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60 with a 32 megapixel selfie cam that also shoots in 4K 60. So the performance on here is pretty good. Low light shots are actually pretty good on here as well too. So I like the cameras on this phone. You also have on here 4500 milliamp battery with 25-watt fast charging, and then you have the reverse wireless charging on here with the 15-watt charging as well. So your battery life is going to be pretty good. I can easily get over 6 hours of screen on time on this phone as well too, so I don't have any issues with that. So overall, it's a really good buy. Next is going to be the Samsung Galaxy S10e. This is a phenomenal phone for anybody looking for a smaller, compact flagship type of phone here. So we also have on here aluminum frame, glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant, and it does have a completely flat 5.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display. It's HDR10 plus, 1080p, 438 for the PPI. Absolutely love this phone. I love the display. I love these sides. It's extremely comfortable for people with smaller hands. You do have the Android 12 update with One UI 4.1. It runs flawlessly on this device, and the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. I haven't really noticed any slowdowns with this phone. It's still extremely fast with gaming. You can play games at the highest settings, and it's just a very fast phone. You also have micro SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. Then you also have very loud sounding stereo speakers, especially for the size of this device. Tuned by AKG. The headphone jack is on board. We also have NFC. The fingerprint scanner is also another highlight. It's side mounted. It's very fast, and I actually prefer this method over all the other methods. You also do have on here Samsung desktop support, and you also have NFC on this phone, so it's packed with a ton of features. So you do have on here pretty good camera setup. Now it's only a dual camera setup, 12 megapixel standard, 16 megapixel ultra wide, so no telephoto lens. It's 4K 60 for the video, and then a 10 megapixel selfie cam. It shoots in 4K 60. Image quality is still pretty good on here. Like I said, there's no crazy zoom, there's no telephoto, but I think in general, if you're a casual shooter, you'll be perfectly fine with this phone. I think it does a pretty good job. So you also have on here, and I guess this is kind of the weak part of the phone. It's a 3,100 milliamp battery with 15-watt charging, 15-watt wireless charging as well. Basically, battery life is just not that great. It's like 4 hours and 30 minutes, so it's just kind of okay. It kind of doesn't get you through the full day if you're like a normal to heavier user. If you're a super light user, you can probably get through the full day. But yeah, so overall, the S10e is still a really great buy. Alright guys, last is going to be the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. This is one of my favorite phones, mostly because it's just super cheap now, around 200, 50 bucks. It might be cheaper than that now. And it's one of the cheapest phones you can get with a stylus that I think is actually worth it, because it's still very high quality product here. So you have an aluminum frame, IP68 dust and water resistant on here. Some of you guys were saying the design looks a bit dated, but most people, they put a case on the phone anyway. So you have the built-in stylus on here, the Super AMOLED display HDR10. It's a 6.4-inch display, and the kind of unique thing about this display is that there's no notch or punch hole on here, so that could be a benefit for you as well. It's 1440p 516 for the PPI, so it's a very high res display. It still looks really, really good watching videos on this phone. So this phone, I believe the last update it got was Android 10, and it's been in its security patch stages. It still runs flawlessly. It still plays games really well with the Snapdragon 845, Adreno 630. Now it's not gonna max stuff out, but it still does a really good job at playing games. You can check out my videos on it. You have micro SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and then you have 6 or 8 gigs of RAM on here. So this phone also has stereo speakers, and they sound pretty good, very full sounding. In addition to that, this phone also retains the headphone jack. You also have NFC, and you also have the iris scanner on here, a physical fingerprint scanner on the back, which is very fast. And this phone also has the Samsung desktop support on here still. Now, this phone also has, in my opinion, still very good cameras. It's a 12 megapixel standard and then a 12 megapixel telephoto. You also have 2x optical zoom on here, and it also shoots in 4K 60. I honestly still thought the shots came out pretty good, and if you're in good to decent lighting, I actually was pretty surprised with the image quality on here. You also have an 8 megapixel selfie camera on here, and then that shoots in 1440p. So overall, really good device. 4,000 milliamp battery, 15-watt charging, wireless charging on here as well too. So it's I really like this over like the cheaper Motorola stylus phones, in my opinion, just because the software is more integrated with the stylus than those phones are. So I just think it's a really good buy still. Battery life is pretty decent on here as well too. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.